Hello everyone, I am Tim.
And I'm Zoe.
And we are here to talk to you about the grammar book,
yes,
which is coming out on the 11th of June, published by Bloomsbury Education. And we are going to be answering some of your questions today. So the first question is, why did we want to write this book? Zoe, why did we want to write this book?
Why did we want to write this book? It's a great question. We wanted to write this book because both individually and together, I suppose, we have sort of grappled with the sort of primary grammar curriculum, particularly post the 2014 curriculum when the expectations changed slightly.
Michael Gove.
What we expected of children altered, and lots of new sort of terminology came in. And I sometimes felt like I was expected to already know it, and I hadn't learnt it at school myself. And I was never really sure who I could ask without seeming silly. And I thought, wouldn't it just be great if there was just a non-judgmental, no-nonsense, straightforward book that tells you everything you need to know in hopefully a sort of mildly entertaining way? And now there is.
Now there is.
Hey! Okay, next question. Oh, this is a good one. Why do the rules of grammar seem so complicated? Go on, Tim.
Well, I think the main reason is that grammar doesn't actually have rules and people think it does. There are two types of rules in the universe. There are the rules that people set that other people have to follow. So the rules that governments and government advisors set for people, for example, or the rules that teachers set in schools, or the national laws. And then there are the kind of universal, unchangeable rules and laws, like the laws of physics, the laws of mathematics. And neither of those types of rule exists in grammar, because grammar was created by people, but it was created by many people over millennia. So it doesn't have a central authority that determines what's right or wrong. And it also doesn't have universal and unchanging rules like maths and physics. What it has is the conventions. Grammar describes how people do in fact talk and write. And I think the reason people find it so complicated is they imagine there are more rules than they are. They imagine it's harder than it is. And one of the things we hope you'll discover by reading the book is that actually, firstly, grammar's much easier than you think it is. And secondly, you already know much more of it than you realise.
We actually, one of the rules we had when we wrote this book was to try and avoid talking about sort of the rules of grammar, and we talk a lot about conventions in the book. Okay, next question. What does it say?
So, now this is really a question for the cool kids. What is your favourite grammatical convention?
Ooh, because everyone's got one, that's for sure. My favourite grammatical convention, let me think. Okay. Yes, so I think my favourite grammatical convention is something called the order of adjectives. And I love it because, a bit like what you were saying, it is something that everybody already knows. Most people already know. And the order of adjectives is simply the reason that you say a big red bus rather than a red big bus. Most people would put the size first, and that is what the order of adjectives does. I think we should do a whole separate video on order of adjectives because it's just fabulous. And yeah, I love it because it's simple, and I love it because I actually already knew it. I didn't know that's what it was called. I think it's great. Do you have one?
Can I do my favourite punctuation mark? Is that allowed?
Of course you can.
I'm a big fan of the dash.
Yes.
Because it is so versatile. It can replace the semicolon, it can replace the colon, it can be parenthetical, which is to say it could replace brackets.
Yeah, go with punctuation mark.
Yeah, I think that's what I'd go with.
We're pretty cool people. Okay, is there an area of grammar that you always trip up on, even now? Yes, and I've discovered this since writing reports this year. And it's such a little thing, and I should know it because we've written a whole book on it. Effect and effect. I always have to check myself that I'm using the right form of it in the right sentence and context. I think it's tiny, but it comes up more often than you'd think.
When I'm teaching grammar, the thing I often find quite challenging is making really clear the difference between a phrase and a clause. And it's something that I've really had to grapple with over the years because the distinction between them can sometimes be a little bit grey. But I have wrestled with it, and you can see the results of my labours in the grammar book.
What was it like writing a book together? Ooh,
it was wonderful. I mean, no, it was terrible.
It's great.
Well, what you can say is we are still married. There's been a global pandemic. We've been locked down in our house, and we wrote a grammar book together, and we're still married. So on that basis alone, I feel pretty proud of our efforts.
High five. Oh, yeah.
Grammar book is out on the 11th of June, published by Bloomsbury Education.
Pre-order it now.